Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rob Talks podcast. And this is episode 29. Now, today's episode, as you can see, I'm in a different location. I keep moving around this house trying to find different places where I can record, and I am starting to run out of spots already. But I quite like sitting in this chair. So hopefully, you can join me today and sit in your own powerful chair that also looks like it was made by my grandma. But, anyways, moving on. The topic for today's podcast episode is all to do with getting back to our humanity. So, what do I mean by this? In terms of getting back to our humanity, I've been thinking about this a lot over the past few months, and especially with my experience in Norway, is the fact that as we advance as humans and as we start to develop technology, we're forever innovating and forever trying to push further and create all of these new experiences, especially in the digital space and in even the area of looking into space travel and new ways of transportation and all sorts of different spheres within our lives. It means that we're actually slowly but surely dragging ourselves away from what we used to be. And the main issue with this is that what we can have from that conversation is the fact of ignorance. It's very easy for us to go, let's make social media even more addictive. So, in the Silicon Valley companies that are focusing upon doing that, they're focusing upon retention time and they're trying to get you to stay on the app for as long as possible. And in doing that, that means that they're going to do better as a business, which, with the pink-eyed, rose-tinted glasses on as an entrepreneur, that sounds perfect because you're making more business, you're making more sales, you are thriving, you are developing as a business, and you are growing. And a lot of the time, that's what we focus upon. We see that picture and go, that's perfect. That's the reason why Twitter is so big, why Instagram is so big, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever social media it may be that you use, even LinkedIn, are so big because they are forever trying to work out how they can make their platforms more addictive and more as a way to keep you on there to increase retention time. But the side that we don't always see is what is the flip side of that? And the fact of that it has been shown that when people go on Instagram and they are viewing pictures, especially of where people are on holiday, or especially of how people look, where you're out on the beach and you're showing off your muscles or you're showing off your slim body or whatever it may be, or trying to create this portrayal of that you are having a perfect holiday and you're having a great time. That in fact actually detrimentally affects a lot of the people that are viewing that post. And that's only because naturally as humans, we then look to the negative. We see this perfect picture, this supposedly perfect picture, and instantly put the negative on ourselves and think about, I need to go on a diet, or I need to get to go to the gym just to look like that person. And that can be, in some retrospects and in very small cases, a good thing. But in the majority of cases, it's actually really detrimental to our mental health. And it means that we seek perfectionism and we don't actually seek reality. And that's something that social media does. And I think I watched a podcast episode recently of where Tony Bellew, it was in fact, summed it up really well in terms of that social media is brilliant at showing you the destination, but not the journey. It's brilliant at showing the destination, but not the journey. And I think he is so right because I remember, for one, when I was working at Unilever, one of the things that we focused upon within the brand of Dove, as Dove always has been focusing upon, is positive body image. And as a part of that, Dove have actually released adverts that you can go and watch on YouTube, which perpetuate what is actually behind a photograph, what is actually behind that Instagram post, all of the setup in some cases, the hours of makeup and doing your hair or whatever it may be that an influencer is having to portray or having to do behind the scenes to portray this perfect image that they know will get X amount of likes or X amount of interest. And especially in the case of when they're trying to promote a product, that massively equals what their livelihood is. But once we realize that, you've got to understand that it's not just the destination of that picture. It's so much of the journey that was behind that as well, and how that actually equaled up to that. And the issue, which was massively hit upon when I was working at Unilever and within Dove, was massively the case of that people see the end picture, but don't realize what happened to get to that end picture. And so don't understand why they aren't there already, or what can they do to make sure that you get to that stage and get to that point of being that perfect persona, that perfect picture, that Instagram post that's going to get loads of likes. And so that's where I feel that, especially with social media, we have to be so careful, and we have to really understand, why are we on here? And that's the question that I'm forever asking myself, is what am I doing on here, or why am I on here? Because once you work that out, that's where some people have genuinely realized, I'm on here for a really pointless reason, for a reason that makes no sense. So I may as well delete my account and delete the app. And that's perfectly fine. And then there are some people that maybe are focusing more upon as a entrepreneurial aspect, as marketing. And so they stay on there to be able to find the trends, to be able to find how they can do more of their entrepreneurial activities. There's even still people out there, which I'm sure so many are on social media for this reason, to see what your friends are doing, to celebrate them as individuals as well, and to be able to enjoy the best times of your lives and being able to share that on social media between each other. But of course, social media has so many gray lines and gray areas. And I think that with the growth of social media, and especially with the growth of these companies, it's forever going to get more and more difficult to not feel addicted, or to not feel at least affected, especially with your mental health, from these apps and from these interactions. And if you want to really see how much these application companies know and these social media companies know, there is the it's just got away from my brain at the moment, but there is the Netflix documentary, which is called Social Dilemma, I believe, or something like that. And that is a fantastic documentary to really break down what is actually being done at these companies, to be able to understand who you are as an individual and how to keep you on the platform for as long as possible. Another thing that we have to also understand, because I feel as though that social media is the one space that is spoken about so much when it comes to our lack of humanity now, and the fact that we're going so far ahead with social media that we are losing touch with who we used to be. But it's also with our lives in general. So, of course, as humans, and when we were back in kind of Stone Age man and Stone Age women, and back then, it was very much all about survival. And we were in nature, we were in the countryside, we were in this raw landscape of where that's where you had to find your food. There was no McDonald's, there's no KFC or anything like that. You had to go and find your food and be able to survive. And as we have transitioned as humans, and we are starting to build these cities, which to a point are losing their green space and are losing the opportunities to allow people to even have a chance to meditate, a chance to go on a leisurely walk, and even a chance, as I've spoken about before, to have those awe moments in your brain where you're able to see nature for what it is, or you're being able to see something that is related to nature that will actually help you to relax. There are these little chemical reactions that go on within your brain when you see stuff like that, and it massively helps you in terms of being able to feel present and feel calm. And we are losing that as our cities grow, and as they grow larger in size and population grows in size. We sometimes forget, especially I feel those in the Western societies, of where we have the privilege that we can go to the countryside, we can get in the outdoors. We are losing that. And we have to make sure that we are doing that, to really get back to our roots, to get back to who we actually are as humans. And that we need to make sure that we don't get wrapped up in this rat race of our careers, and just being that your focus is too much on one thing and not enough on what is my physical health today? What is my mental health like today? And how am I? And am I actually getting outdoors? Am I doing any kind of exercise? Am I actually engaging in any way in what I truly am, which is a human? And as human species, we have to make sure that we still have these interactions to be able to look after ourselves. And I think that there are so many technologies which are coming through at the moment, which are amazing. And autonomous vehicles, will throw some out there. This idea of space travel and so many different things that are going on, even most likely in a lot of the background with robotics and or AI and kind of the technologies that are going out of those kind of areas. We have to also understand what the flip side will be from the positives of that for ourselves. As more and more automation comes into our lives, that actually means that we're doing less things. And that means that you're not being able to do the things that were linked to you when you were a Stone Age man or Stone Age woman, whatever, for when we were in those prehistoric times. It means that it's creating a disconnect. Our devices are creating a disconnect. Our social media apps are creating a disconnect. The automation of our lives with AI and robotics are creating a disconnect. And so the question you then have to ask is, where do you find the balance? And I think that the balance is found at the point of where we can use automation to optimize our lives for us, to help us live our best lives. And what I mean by that is that our health is priority number one. And so if automation and AI and robotics or whatever it may be is actually helping you to live your best life, to live a fulfilled life, and to live a life where you are happy and healthy, then I am all for it. But when there are times of that we may be starting to gravitate towards too much automation, to the point of where it may even get to the case of where you're not even cooking anymore. There's no idea of you even knowing how to clean, and that we don't even take times in the day to get off our devices or to actually get away from the kind of lives that we'll be trapped within if everything is automated. That's when I truly see that we are going to extend this mental health crisis. And so much of the reason of why it is slowly but surely getting better is because of self-awareness. Self-awareness is that first initial level that you have to build to be able to understand why you feel the way you feel and why you're struggling maybe with your health, if it's physical or mental. Once you have self-awareness and you understand why I feel this way, why am I feeling what I define as anxiety, or what I'm feeling as defined as depressed, or whatever it may be, that's when we can start to go from there to stay true to ourselves and to stay true to our human roots. And that's why I know, at least for in my own life, so much of being human for me centers around being in the outdoors, being able to have the opportunity to do physical exercise, in particular in the outdoors, to look after my health and to make sure I'm having those awe moments and having those mindfulness moments in being grateful for where I am and being in the present place where I am. I always focus upon making sure I control my time on my devices, because I know, like anybody, it is so easy for us to become focused and we start to get tunnel vision on what our social media is like and what's happening with other people's lives. And then you start to create emotions of maybe jealousy or anger or sadness according to what you're seeing on social media. It can throw your emotions everywhere. And so I always try to make sure that it isn't social media or my devices that are controlling me. It's me controlling my time that I actually give to them. And the easiest way to do that for myself, is to switch notifications off. You switch notifications off and only go on that social media app when you want to. You don't allow your phone to use notifications or to use alerts to drag you onto Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, whatever it may be. And I also love to concentrate upon deep connections, because something that we sometimes forget about is the fact that because our devices are so now linked into our lives, and I'm particularly speaking for my generation, in that I am sure that when you woke up today, that you looked at your phone to check what time it was or to switch your alarm off. But in fact, that then tailwinds into you going onto YouTube, or it tailwinds into you going onto Netflix, or it tailwinds you into going onto some form of social media or messaging a friend or whatever it may be. I suspect the amount of people that actually didn't go on their phone within the first 2 to 3 hours of being awake is very, very low. And that's why, because we have these brilliant devices that can do all these amazing things, it creates a disconnection between humans. Our relationships become purely something which is on a device, which is on the internet, which is on messaging, which is virtual. And by that being enforced upon us, that then means you don't create these deeper connections, these connections of where you really connect with somebody. And I mean really connect on a deeper level in terms of mentally and what you're thinking about and your thoughts and emotions and the feelings of emotions that you've had and experiences that you've had in your own life. You don't get to create those connections. And the beautiful thing is that I know for a fact, when I think about what memories stick in my head the most and bring me the most joy, it is always those in-person connections where devices were way out the way and you are having a real talk with your friends or with new people that you've just met or whatever it may be. It's those real, raw connections which are what make us human. Because at the end of the day, when we were surviving, what we needed was to be in a family. The human species was like a huge family, a huge tribe. And with that tribal mentality, you had to trust the person who was stood next to you. You had to be able to feel as though you're connected to the person that stood next to you. And as we have developed as a species to the point now where we are able to think about such theological things and such greater things from our own brains, and being able to talk to one another in that way and being able to chat about what is the meaning of life. Is there such thing as a higher power? What do aliens exist? Like all of these crazy big questions, we are able to ask them and being able to have a connection with one another through questions like that. And even more emotional questions of, have you ever felt depressed? Have you ever felt like this? Or being able to talk through your own experiences and being able to relate to somebody, or being able to just connect. So much of that connection needs to be kept. And I believe firmly that relationships and that connection in the real world is massive in terms of how it can impact our mental health. And the last thing that I'd want to touch upon is that I'm forever focusing as well upon mindfulness and the fact that we are part of this earth and that we are part of this human species. We are part of 7 billion plus people now. You as an individual who are watching, or whoever you may be listening, whatever, you are so special and so integral to the part of this whole human species that we as a species like to define so many of the biggest shifts that have happened within our societies and within our world down to singular people. And I don't always believe that it is down to just purely that single person meaning that X thing has happened, but we always do that. And it shows how we can see that everybody in your own unique way has something special about them. The fact that you are alive and that you are living and breathing and being part of this world is something that is so special. And the probability of that is so small that you are here. And especially the probability is even smaller that you are here listening to this right now. There has to be something unique about you and something special about you. And so that's why I'm forever thinking about, how can we be more mindful? How can you be grateful for the things that you have in your life, your friends, your relationships, this earth that we are on, this beautiful place that we are trashing, and we need to stop that, and being able to actually connect with the place where we live, the place that we call home. And I believe that overall, with this feeling of taking away the things that disconnect us as humans and building more things that actually connect us, that's what will look after our mental health. That is what will help us to be able to be physically fit, but also mentally fit. And we can look after one another. And as long as you maybe consider the things that I use in my own life, but also even what works for you to be able to build these connections. Is it being part of communities? Is it being part of university societies? Is it even just making sure that you check in with somebody every week over a phone call? Or if you can, meeting up in person? Whatever it may be, being able to have these connections with people, with our lives, and with this planet that we call home, I think will ultimately always be the thing that keeps us centered, that helps us to live in the present, and that helps us to live happy and healthy lives. You have been listening to the Rob Talks podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you go away today feeling as though you can be more mindful, you can live more in the present, and work out how can you make those connections in your life that will help you and that will also help others. And I will see you next week for the next Rob Talks podcast. You have just been listening to the Rob Talks podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please make sure to subscribe and give me a follow on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, or even LinkedIn. And I will speak with you soon. Stay safe and have a great week.